All right. So before we start, as we usually do, I would like to ask everybody to just gather yourself together and sit straight up, your feet on the ground, your palms on your lap, and let's have a few minutes of silence and come in, doing deep breathing, listening, listening to the silence and what comes to each one of us in the silence. So you may close your eyes if you want to. Take a deep breath. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. And may peace and love and light be with you in this few minutes of silence. As you inhale deeper than usual and exhale deeper than usual. Take another deep breath. Inhale. We wake to the sacred circle. Inhale. Inhale. Exhale. I will receive this blessing. We give thanks for all those who are moved in their lives to heal and protect the earth in small ways and in large. Blessings on the composters, the gardeners, the breeders of worms and mushrooms, the soil builders, those who cleanse the waters and purify the air, all those who clean up the messes others have made. Blessings on those who defend the tree and who plant trees, who guard the forest and who renew the forest. Blessings on those who learn to heal the grasslands and renew the streams, on those who prevent erosion, who restore the salmon and the fisheries, who guard the healing herbs, and who know the lore of the wild plants. Blessings on those who heal the city and bring them alive again with excitement and creativity and love, gratitude and blessing to all who stand against greed, who risk themselves, to those who have bled and been wounded, and to those who have given their lives in service of the earth. May all the healers of the earth find their own healing. May they be fueled by passionate love for the earth. May they know their fear, but not be stopped by fear. May they feel their anger and yet not be ruled by rage. May they honor their grief, but not be paralyzed by sorrow. May they transform fear, rage, and grief into compassion and the inspiration to act in service of what they love. May they find the help, the resources, the courage, the luck, the strength, the love, the health, the joy that they need to do the work. May they be in the right place at the right time in the right way. May they bring alive a great awakening. Open a listening ear to hear the earth's voice. Transform balance to balance, hate and greed to love. Blessed be the healers of the earth. Thank you, everyone. Um, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you all being here and being with me today. I'm here to discuss to you a topic that is very close to my heart: sustainable agriculture and its power to regenerate and restore. And without further ado, I'll start with my presentation. And Claire, if you could uh, help share the screen while Claire is doing it. I'd like to welcome everybody. I'm not able really to see who are here, but I saw kanina Tita Pam from UTLD and also Manong Rick and Amalia, Diwata Amalia from Bulacan. We also have our brothers here from Bayawan, and one of the 4-H club presidents is here also with us in Bayawan. Rail is here. The others I have not yet mentioned. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. So first, my presentation is entitled Harnessing the Regenerative and Restorative Power of Sustainable Agriculture. Thank you, Sarah. Before I proceed, I just would like to put into context where my presentation is coming from. And I happened to bump into this report from the have it here. From the Oscar and Lopez Center for um, the Oscar and Lopez Center for climate resilience. I'm not and they have the state of the 2019 would like to read to you what the executive director of the center said and what really got my attention. It said we ended the decade and entered the new one with the world slowed down by a global pandemic. But the changing climate, on the other hand, is not slowing down as temperatures continue to rise and pose as an ever increasing threat that human history has yet to witness. And he gets to highlight the weak El Nino that started in 2018 and lasted until July of 2019, affecting 2.4 million people in the Philippines and in 11 regions. And in the latter part of 2019, Typhoon Tisoy and Ursula affected at least 5 million people and destroyed no less than 9 billion worth of agriculture and infrastructure assets. But we've been hearing over the years all these reports of what's been happening, no? And the key finding is there. If we could go to the key finding already on the fifth slide. Okay. The next one, please.
Tama ba, ma'am?
The next one.
Yan.
Yung next. All right. Okay. They said here, we are already in 2020, but last 2019, this was the fourth warmest year on record in the Philippines, compared to the 1981-2010 baseline temperature. Both daytime and nighttime temperatures exhibited hotter than usual conditions. And then what also caught my attention was the rainfall, except in August and in December. Generally, the country received below normal rainfall in the 10 months. And February actually reached 24%, way below normal rainfall conditions. 18 portions of the country received annual rainfall amounts that were 500 to 1,000 millimeters lower than 1981 and 2010 baseline. And this got my attention again because just recently here in Bayawan, we had this massive flooding, and actually we are receiving lesser and lesser annual rainfall. And I couldn't put two and two together. And then there's this tropical cyclones in 2019. Usually on average, long-term average, we would experience 90 to 20 tropical cyclones per year, but in 2019, we are more than that. You know? And also the El Nino Southern Oscillation that started October 28th and lasted until July 2019. And a 0.8 degrees increase, Celsius increase was sustained from November to December to November, December, January 2018 season to March, April, May season. So at least at the Philippine context, we are seeing that there's mm, increasing, generally increasing temperature and also the effect of uh, the El Nino. I also was wondering how over the years this, in a way, really happened in the last 120 years from then to now, and just to pin down really the major sources, the major factors that brought about these changes. And if you can see, all right, next slide, please. Here. Okay, so we have here six different pictures of the Philippine map showing the decline of forest cover in the Philippines since the 1900s. And the upper left corner on the first uh, on the upper part of it, that's 1900, and then the middle upper is 1920, and the third one is 1960. So 1900 to 1920s, relatively, the Philippines still covered in forest. And in 40 years, from 1920 to 1960, already we're seeing the steady decline in forest cover of the country. So from the 1960s, the upper right picture of the country, you will see already the declining color marking the decline, steady decline in the forest cover. And the lowest picture of the Philippine map in the lower right corner was in 1999, so about year 2000. And already you can just imagine in 2022, now we barely have 5% forest cover in the country. And so I needed to have a picture of this, to have a historical basis to why these things are happening. And next slide, please, Claire. And over the 20 years, at least in this, in the papers that I've come across with, this steady conversion of forestful land, mostly it is converted to agricultural land. So 120 years of steady conversion. And this brought about, next slide. Okay. Could we do how do you call it? Could we do a PowerPoint presentation there? To where we are.
Wait. Yan, nakikita niyo ma'am lahat ng slides?
Yes, I can see, but can we do the presentation, the actual PowerPoint presentation? Can you launch the presentation para ma-discuss natin siya isa-isa? We go already to the current slide. Tapos launch yung
Ano lumalabas sa screen niyo ma'am?
it's still the steady change, pero hindi siya naka-PowerPoint.
PowerPoint na siya sa akin eh.
Alright. Sa akin kasi hindi. I wonder if it is the same sa mga kasama natin. Are you seeing the PowerPoint presentation or are you just seeing the file?
Nakalagay yung buong slides.
Oo, buong
Sige.
slide.
Stop
There.
ko muna, ma'am, ha? Stop ko muna, ma'am.
Alright. Alright. Okay. Hi, Christine. Thank you for the note. Still in edit mode. Ambal niya na sa
Yan.
edit mode. Alright. Thank you very much.
Okay na.
Okay, sige. Thank you.
for the feedback. Alright. So, the steady conversion for 120 years brought about a steady change as well. And this included our landscape, at least the entire country's landscape and seascape, the ecosystem functions. Click, Claire. And then the hydrologic functions, as well as the nutrient cycling, ecosystem functions. Really, what we have here in the Philippines is mostly the allotic system, not from the forest, the rainforest, sa taas ng mga bundok natin, at pababa doon sa river, riparian zone, pababa din sa mga lakes, ponds and lakes, papunta down sa mangrove forest, estuarine areas, and the deltas, the seagrass bed, pababa sa coral reef, and then sa open sea. And affected din ang how these different ecosystems function and the hydrologic function, how the water moves in and out of these different ecosystems. How it evaporates, moves up, and then gets condensed into different forms, gets condensed. And also the nutrient cycling, yung carbon cycling and all the other nutrients in a cycle back. They've all been affected. Kasali na rin yung biodiversity, and Philippines being one of the most biodiverse spots in the whole planet. We're losing a lot. We have really no idea how much we're losing because we're not very keen on monitoring what really are being phased out forever in the Philippine archipelago. And ramdam din natin, lalo na tayo ng mga farmers and gardeners who are really in very close touch with the elements. Ramdam natin yung changes sa weather patterns, as well as the climatic patterns. Next, please. Ramdam din natin na hirap na tayong magtansya. Ano ba yung itatanim ko ngayon? Kasi hindi ko alam kung mabubulok yung corn na itatanim ko, etc. etc. Mahirap nang mag-project. And also, especially yung food production natin sa the Philippines. They're already at being steady change. And mas na-highlight pa yung change sa health ngayon with the pandemic. So, in a span of years, so much have changed in, I'd say, 6 generations. And we are on the 7th generation. Sabi nga nila, something will change when the 7th generation comes. So I'm really excited about that. But going back to the slide, all this steady change brought about, a different feeling ba doon sa climate change, and we get too worried about it. And when we say climate change, but are we really worried about climate change? We're worried about the flooding, massive flooding. Pag meron ng malakas na ulan, buhos, and also the differing patterns already of the rain, no? Hindi na siya tulad nung dati na parang tansyado lang. Ngayon, very short span of time, buhos bigla yung ulan, biglang dating bigla din ng ulan. And there had been increasing number of wildfires. We're also very worried of diseases, both new and old. More and more, mas ramdam natin yung kawalan ng tubig and the worsening water and air pollution. And clear, there's already drought, yes, and the water and air pollution. Yeah. And then there's less and less water every year as well. Mas dumadami yung mga farms na hindi na siya na there's no production anymore on say kulang konti na ng pakonti yung tubig every year.
Hello po.
All right. I'm sorry. I think I went offline. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Din.
Well, thank you so much. All right. So, as I was saying, as farmers, we experience less and less water every year, and it's getting worse. No. Um, next, please. Here. Extinction. We have no idea really the different species that are extinct every single day. And there's the rising sea level. The Philippines having one of the longest coastal areas, we are really very vulnerable to rising sea levels as well, especially those in the low-lying areas. And the algal bloom, next, and fish kills, and very recently, because I hailed from Bicol region, and I think we have here some of my friends, if they're here with us, who are from Samar. You can just imagine how storms are becoming stronger every year. I think it was last year in summer, in April, when we had, I think, April, in the middle of summer, we have super typhoon that never happened in my lifetime, at least. That never happened before. And we're having also many cases of erosions. Every time there's rainfall, not even that huge, we already are experiencing erosion and landslide. Next slide, please. And we also experience a lot of land drying out. It's huge, massive amount, a massive number of land drying out. And also temperatures killing people and animals. We know this already, but there's just too much greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. On top of extinction, there's also the reduced diversity in the remaining pockets of biodiverse areas are experiencing reduction in diversity. Definitely reduced water security. There's less and less rain, and there's less and less water being absorbed by the landscape, and definitely we are less water secured. And because there's less water, chemical pollutants. Okay, I'm sorry. Chemical pollutants. There's a lot of them now. If you add water, there's more pollutants in the water. And the next one is very important for us as farmers. It seems like whatever it is that we do, especially those who are engaged in conventional farming, however much we put in it, it seems that the land does not grow food anymore, not as well as before. And this is due to the loss of topsoil. There's not enough water, and at a regional scale and at the global scale, this leads to climate migration and increase in climate refugees. But already, this is a reality for a lot. The decrease in water also leads to conflict over land and water and housing. But okay, so there's so much bad news already, and I added more of the bad news. Sorry, guys. But, you know, there's this code. Please click the entire code. Claire, I love this quote from Ilya Prigogine, and I really hang on to it. And Ilya Prigogine said, when a system is far from any equilibrium, small islands of coherence have the capacity to shift the entire system. So I never really underestimate the power of small things, small islands of coherence. And this is very true in all the things that we do at sustainable agriculture. Tayo ng mga holders and keepers of these small islands of coherence. We have that. We have the capacity to shift the entire system. The next slide is, I wish it were more interactive, but this one, I love this picture because this is a picture of the living soil, not the soil sponge. Could you go back to the previous slide, Claire? Okay, let's just have a really good look at this picture and for a moment connect to it, connect with such precious resource. It is right under our feet, and it is one of the most underrated, taken for granted elements that could really help see us through dun sa mga mention natin kanina. And it's rarely mentioned in international forums on how to reverse climate change. It's rarely given the highlight that it deserves. And here I would like to put a lot of emphasis on the soil, on the living soil, on the soil sponge. Because we are, as sustainable agriculture practitioners, supporters, advocates, we are the holders and keepers of this soil, of this sacred element. And so next slide, please. So what is this living soil and soil sponge? Most of us know this already, but I'll still run it through. Soil sponge is composed of little broken down rocks. You know naman from our science subjects before na lahat ng soil, there are little broken down rocks. And so it is composed of that. And it is also composed of this wonderful, wonderful thread of mycorrhizae and hyphae. It's just beautiful when you look at it with a microscope or at least a magnifying lens. It's going to blow you away. The way the thread binds these rock particles together. And what else is in living soil? It also has this blue because of the huge amount of microorganisms in it, especially the bacteria. Meron sila ng parang blue, no? Parang epoxy type na would allow them to stick to the things that they go in. So hindi sila agad ma-wash away. And so they have this glue. And there's another thing, the living soil or the soil sponge has this space. It has this air. And it has this space for air and for water as well. And it's huge. Like, kung gaano kakapal ang living soil mo, it will go right. You just right through it. And of course, there's life moving through there, no? You can just imagine doon mismo naka-embed sa mga materials, the broken down rock. Ang dami na doon ng microorganisms, and these spaces, it creates highways for air and water to flow. And so all the other all the other organisms can enter through it, and they can breathe through it, and they can feed also in it. So it's unimaginable how much life you could find in a living soil. I love this picture. I really do. And so what can it do? What's the function? The soil sponge, because it has holes, it can hold a lot of water. Huh? Next, please. And because of the glues and the threads, it does not fall apart when water hits it. It is water. Next, please. It is water absorbent and water resistant. Okay. It is, as we have mentioned, made of biological slimes and glue. Let's put them together and create this aggregate. So, magdikit-dikit siya, and yung mga sinulid-sinulid niya, i-grupo-grupo siya as a soil particle aggregate, creating this spaces in between. And usually, yung threads niya are the fungi and the mycorrhizae. And it has structural integrity. Kahit matuyo siya, very, very hard for water to break it apart. No? Okay, so here's the thing. I'll tell you about the tale of two soils. I have here the degraded soil and the living soil. We could pause here for a bit. And so we have here, could you go back? Could you go back a little bit, Claire? Okay. Jenny, please excuse me, everybody. I would like, could you do me a favor, Claire, and put my camera on? Because I have prepared here a plate full.
Naka-off kayo, ma'am. Yung camera niyo naka-off.
Naka-off pala. All right.
Yan. Okay na. Okay na.
I cannot see myself though. Can you see? Can you see the plate?
Yes, ma'am Jean.
Is it okay? Okay, so I hope you can see this because I cannot. I don't know why. But okay, can you see this? I have here a plate full of flour.
Yes, Mali.
Is it okay? And then what we will do is we will pour. We will
Bakit
pour.
ba? Walang makitang action. Tale of two soils.
Nagre-reflect yung yung water bottle.
Baka next slide na.
Could you go here? Because I think it's okay.
Parang frozen yung slide ko.
Yes. Can everybody see me?
No.
I see you.
No.
At dalawa ba ang kwan? Dalawa ang anong tawag dito? Slide. Ang presentations na binuksan. Kasi dito one slide lang ang meron. Tale of two soils. Degraded soil and living soil.
Yes, ma'am Pam. Diyan pa lang tayo.
Akala ko kasi may sinasabi si
Yes.
Dindin.
Oo. And then, Claire, if you could just turn my video on, if it's on, because I'm going to do a demonstration.
Yes, ma'am. Naka-on ka na, ma'am. Nakikita ka na namin. Nandin? Hello, Ma'am Dean? Hello everyone, please wait lang po ulit wala po ulit si Ma'am Dindin.
Hi, everybody. I'm back. I really
Yes, Ma'am Dean.
apologize. Yes,
Yes, hello.
yes. I really apologize for the connection, very unstable connection. I just would like to ask if you can see the flower in front of me.
Naka-video off ka, ma'am. Yan, okay. Okay
Okay,
na.
now. All right. And okay. So I'll just move this a little bit here. So this is a demonstration of what happens in a degraded landscape. Huh? Just please pour this here a little bit. So we are pouring. Thank you. So this is what we have here. That functionally is what happens to our degraded land. No? And so going back to the slide, Claire. I really, really hope you can see this. But we have here the picture, no? The tale of two soils. You can go back to the slide. Claire.
Tama ba ang slide, ma'am? Or yung may picture na may flour and bread?
Yeah, that one. The picture of my flour and bread. Yeah. All right. So we have here, nakita natin kanina, no? So basically, that's what happens. So in a degraded landscape, the one here in the red. Next slide, please. Okay. Next. All right. So what happened? Kanina, when the water is poured into it, ano nangyari? Isa-isahin natin. So, nagkaroon siya ng erosion. You can see, no? Like, there, may mga nalaglag siya. There's flooding. You see it dun sa gilid ng flower. And may mga landslide. Tulad na nakikita nyo dito sa harap, sa ibaba. The soil, in this case the flour, and the other chemicals goes into the water. So makita yung murky. No? Yung kanyang tubig. What else? Halos wala, no? None of the water has soaked into the flour. Halos lahat, nandito lang siya outside. And this is because the smaller soil particles, they are moving sideways. Hindi siya inward, creating a crust. So, makita niyo siya, nagbubuo-buo siya dyan. And that's the crust being created. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So here's the thing. When it dries, itong crust na to, it becomes very solid, this crust. And hindi siya ma-penetrate ng ulan. And binablock niya completely yung area from absorbing rain. And so, kung ilalagay natin siya, ilalapas natin siya sa landscape, anong ginagawa ng mga farmers? Ang mga farmers, they would plow and fill it para ma-break yung crust. Kasi hindi na makapasok yung tubig. And that's very understandable. Kasi, oo nga naman. Paano naman makakakuha ng water yung mga tanim? But once they do this, yung konti na soil sponge na nag-form, na nag-start na mag-form, na-degrade din siya. And so, walang na-form na soil sponge. And this leads to this vicious cycle and this big problem over and over again. Ma-plow and ma-till sila, and then it goes on and again, and it worsens every time. And i-compare naman natin siya doon sa bread or the living soil and soil sponge. So here, I have here a bread. I-demonstrate ko ulit, ha?
Naka-video off ka, ma'am.
Naka-video off ako. Could you just backtrack a bit yung slides here, and then I'll turn the video. All right. So this is the bread. Here. Okay. So can you see it ba? Can all of you see it? It's okay naman. All right. Okay for now. Okay. So let's see what happens when we pour water. Water. All right. I really, really hope you see this. You can put more water on it. So here, water, we're pouring more water. More water. And it's getting so. And water is here already on the, can we go back to the slide? All right. So, ano yung na-observe natin doon? The water is not running off, no? The water gets soaked in. And then it goes down to the plant, root, and the soil is not dry underneath. And because it is wet, it is well soaked, the layer is protected from evaporation. And when we do this, we refill. There's so many things happening here, no? We refill the groundwater, and see that there's no flooding, no flooding. And you see, clear na clear yung tubig niya around and underneath, no? Hindi tulad nung nauna na mark. And there's no drought right after flooding. And no movement of silt particles sideways. And no crusting on the top. And only after siya masok, saka lang lalabas yung water doon sa edges. Can you just imagine, no? How much water it gets soaked in it. So, how much water do you think can we pour into it? Huh? That's a lot, maybe 10 times more than what we poured doon sa flour. And so this sponge, the soil sponge, can really hold an unbelievable amount of water. And it is this amount of water that charges and flows to the rivers and the lakes and the streams and the ponds. And the best nito is because it goes through the soil biology. It goes through the life in the soil. It gets biologically detoxified, no? And so we go back to the picture of it again. Okay. More than that, when the wind blows, the air is clean and clear doon sa landscape, no? Wala ng soil daw, wala ng dust that goes with the air. And this water that flows downstream, that gets stored in the aquifers, no? It flows downstream. And this helps create the secondary water cycle. And so, kung meron ng strip of greens in the landscape, it creates another cycle, a hydrological cycle beside it. Right. Next, I really apologize for the noise. So, there's a question: how much water can living soil hold? Ano yung mga factors? We saw the difference between it. There's so much that the living soil can hold, but it really depends on these different factors. So the following are the factors in water retention sa ating living soil and soil sponge. The first is texture. Anong klase ng soil meron tayo? And I just would like to briefly differentiate yung soil texture and soil structure. Yung sa soil structure, soil texture. Ito yung particles ng rock, and these are the ones that we know: the sand, the silt, and the clay. And sa clay, very, very tiny ang kanyang particles. And so it absorbs more slowly the water, but holds on to it longer. Unlike the sandy soil, na ito naman yung on the other extreme, malaki yung kanyang particles. And so meron siya, very porous siya, and so the water goes straight down and right through. And wala siya masyadong naho-hold na water. Okay, so what's the soil structure? This is a different name for the soil sponge. It is the arrangement of those. I'm hearing a cat. Okay, thank you. Okay, the soil sponge is the arrangement of those rock particles, like what we've mentioned earlier. Na andun na yung mga hyphae, the threads, the organic matter, the spaces in between, the voids and the cavities for air and water to flow. The difference, if the soil is alive, no, if it's a living soil, if it's a soil sponge, kahit pa sandy ang soil niya, because of the very complex structure that is there, it slows down yung filtration. It slows down yung flow ng water, and it soaks in more. And with the clay soil as well, because the structure of the clay soil, if titingnan ninyo siya sa magnifying lens, para siyang plato na you stack it together, ganun yung particles niya. And so when it gets wet, it attracts yung different particles together. And so sticky siya, mahirap siyang hiwa-hiwalayin. But if you have the biology in the soil, just like what Elaine would usually say, there's life in the soil. Kaya niyang tuklapin yung mga particles, yung mga plato na nagkakapatong-patong. And it does not clog up easily. So it puts it, ano bang tawag dyan? It unbinds yung mga particles and create and bring and tinatali din siya ng mga hyphae and mga threads in such a way na hindi siya mag-clog up. So that's the difference between the soil structure and the soil texture. So we go back to the factors again. So we have the mineral texture and also the depth to the bedrock or ledge. Yung nakita natin is only a bread. Sabihin natin like an inch thick. Pero already it was able to absorb. So kung ilalapat natin siya sa landscape, if makapal yung soil sponge mo, malayo siya doon sa bedrock or sa ledge, you can just imagine how much water it can contain. No? It's a lot. It's a lot. The next would be, another factor would be the organic matter. Okay. Just a brief segue lang on the organic matter. Next slide, please. So the organic matter includes all the dead leaves, the twigs, the branches, the bark, even the bugs. You know, what's left over from life, but it also includes the living organism. Alam natin na yung dry leaves is not equal to wet leaves in weight. And why is this? Bakit nag-absorb ng water ang dry materials, dry organic matter? It's because nung buhay pa sila, meron ng mga spaces in between them na nag-occupy ng water. And so, like yung mga dahon, all these cavities pa na pinapasukan ng tubig, andun pa rin sila. And so, when water hits the material, it will absorb water. So remember, dead, dry things will always absorb water. And we are not just talking about being able to absorb water, we are also talking about intercepting water. No. So, kung ang ating soil surface, say in a farm, kung ang ating soil surface is smooth, hindi mo ma-intercept ang water, mag-flow lang siya. Para siyang simento. Mag-flow lang siya. Pero pag rough siya, andyan lahat ng agricultural refuse mo, you can intercept. You can intercept. So, all the plants, yung mga plant litters, kahit yung mga grasses, yung mga twigs, yung mga dahon, all these things, I love that they act like these billions of tiny dams, no, mga micro dams that slow the flow and give time for water to percolate in the soil sponge. So they would swear. Just imagine these micro dams. And how beautiful would that be when you go on a rainy day and then you will see just how well coordinated this intercepting of water is in a living soil. Next slide, please. Okay. And there's also the factor of the pores, no? After the organic matter, this is the organization of the organic matter and the spaces in between them. Pores. Pag mas marami ng pores, mas maraming tubig ang makakapasok doon. And hindi lang yung presence ng pores, it's also the openness of the pores on the surface. Because if it's compacted, it becomes sealed, no? There's this so-called surface sealing. Para kang naglalagay ng palaman doon sa tinapay. Iba ang behavior ng bread na may palaman, bubuhusan mo ng tubig, at yung bread na walang palaman, bubuhusan mo din ng tubig. No? So, we have to take also the compaction into consideration. Next slide, please. Of course, plants and trees take up water. And so it's it's definitely one of those factors in water retention. And then the slope. Um, pag mas steep ang slope, mas faster ang movement ng water. So, pag-usapan natin itong slope. In very sloping areas, plants and trees, they do prevent erosion because nga of this mga dams. But water is moving too quickly to stop and percolate. But it gives it enough time to percolate. But we have to consider as well, especially in riparian zones, no? Yung mga shrubs and plants and trees, they take up and hold water in the landscape, but maybe not necessarily in the soil. You could just imagine ano yung mga crevasse, yung mga little pockets where water accumulates in the leaves, in the trunk, in the bark, doon sa mga holes, mga hollows, even sa leaves mismo, sa branches and the twigs, and the spaces in between, not necessarily in the soil. The entire landscape is soaking up water as well. So, kahit slopey ka, you still get to absorb that water. Next. Okay. The speed of evaporation is another factor. Magdedepende ito doon sa gaano ka-cover ang soil mo. Meron ba siya ng mga kahoy? Because we know na ibang-ibang temperature ng shaded area kaysa sa exposed area. And also ibang-iba din ang behavior pag well mulched ang soil mo at hindi. So kahit doon mismo sa mulch, you can see the difference. Like if you have good mulch, really well mulched bed, makita mo dry na dry siya sa taas. But if you stick your finger into the mulch, mafe-feel mo na doon sa ilalim basa siya. So, ito yung converse naman siya doon sa may palaman sa ibabaw ng bread, no? It slows down, if not stops, yung evaporation pag meron siya ng cover. So whether it's living and mulch, pag may soil cover, it helps a lot. All right. So reviewin natin ulit. I'm really amazed at how nakita ko ito. I'm really amazed in very simple na demonstration at how much water is percolated into a living soil, and this gives me a different perspective now. It gives me a different set of eyes when viewing the issues on climate change and what is happening. Ano yung mga challenges natin sa agriculture on top of food production, etc. So let's review. Have a quick review, no? So what are we worried na about climate change? So quick lang. Flooding, wildfires, diseases, extreme weather patterns, droughts, water and air pollution, less and less water every year, it's the loss of life, extinction, rising sea levels, algal blooms, fish kills, big, very big, dangerous storms, erosions and landslides, land drying out, temperatures, extreme temperatures killing people and animals and also plants. Just so much greenhouse gas in the air, new diseases, rise in sea level due to melting ice caps and glaciers, reduced diversity, reduced water security, chemical pollutants, land does not grow food anymore, conflict because of the decrease in water, conflict over land and water and housing, no? And so uh, I met this wonderful woman online, and she really highlighted, she's one of those pillars that really promotes living soil and the soil sponge, and how she opened my eyes to it being the foundational infrastructure on land. We've already seen in the demonstration of the flour and the bread kung ano yung nangyayari and ano yung promise of the living soil. And so I'll highlight it. I'll attempt to highlight it even more here. There will always, like right now, madalas, meron talaga ng mga periods na very low ang rainfall. And problema natin, saan tayo kukuha ng tubig? Tayo na mga manananim, tayo na mga farmers, saan tayo kukuha ng tubig kung wala? But there are still ways of capturing and delivering water to plants. Nandyan yung dew and the other condensates. I remember in the morning, doon sa ecovillage, I was worried na, wow, ilang weeks na wala pa ng ulan, and yet every single morning pag naglalakad kami doon sa garden, basang-basa, every leaf basang-basa siya ng dew, and nako-condense pa rin siya, and it's being captured by the landscape, by the garden, because we make sure na halos lahat talaga ng part ng soil ng garden namin is covered, either by living or non-living. Basta covered siya. And there's also this wonderful way, a myriad of ways, kung biologically, the metabolic processes ng the life in the soil creates this biological water that the plants also take in. When one microorganism would eat the other one, and may sobra na nutrient and mineral and water, the plant is able to take it up. No, when a fungi eating, I don't know, protozoa or another microorganism would feed, yung natitira doon becomes available to the plant, and the plant absorbs it. So this is the way it does it. And I really would want you to take a look at the work of Elaine Ingham. She's really the pillar of the soil food web. It's very interesting how she dives into how all these wonderful creatures in the soil would behave in this wonderful coordinated dance that allows life to bloom. And then there's the mycorrhizal fungi as well. Please go back a little bit, Claire. Okay. The mycorrhizal fungi has these threads. Ang haba-haba niya. Para siyang sidulid na naka-attach sa root hair ng plants. And siya yung parang nagiging extension ng plant na makapunta doon sa hindi na mapasok ng roots. Even sa pinaka maliit na area na may konti ng water, the mycorrhiza can go in there and help feed that to the plant. So minsan mag-wonder kayo, bakit wala na tubig dito sa area na to? And yet, wala nang ulan for months. And yet, nagsathrive pa rin itong mga tanim na ito. So, these are some of the ways kung paano nadi-deliver yung waters of plants. If you have a biologically active landscape, no? This is possible if the landscape is alive. Next slide, please. Okay. So, kahit wala ng rain, next please. So, kahit wala ng ulan, kahit wala ng mainom na tubig,
But we have to keep in mind that there's this tremendous, absolutely a huge, unimaginable amount of water in the air. And we cannot see it because it's in vapor form, but it's there. It is there and it's being processed. In a biologically landscape, it is being absorbed and it's being processed. Okay, so balikan natin yung issue sa wildfire. Sa issue ng wildfire, is usually, ang problema is, pag ang dami-dami ng fuel available, and there's a lot of heat, mag-spark siya ng konti, mag-ensue na ang wildfire. And so, if you have a biologically alive landscape, biologically active landscape, pag nahuhulog yung mga branches and mga twigs and leaves and bark and everything that could become fuel for fire, dahil basa ang lupa, the fungi and all the other microorganisms, the shredders, they turn it into compost. And compost is moist, it's soft, it's alive, no? And there's no material na po pwedeng masunog during wildfire. Also, because marami yung stock na tubig underneath the soil sponge, yung ating mga roots ng plants and trees, andyan yung kanilang ready ang kanilang access to water. And so they are healthier and hindi sila dry. And because of that, they are more resistant to, well, at least sa fire, hindi sila madaling tatablan because basa sila. And they're more resistant to pests and diseases that could create more fuel by killing the trees and cutting the branches and more possible fuel for fire. Tapos ang maganda dito, there's what we call this insulating buffer in temperature extremes. Dahil mas maraming plants and trees ang nabubuhay in a soil sponge landscape, mas mababa ang temperature dito sa area na to because of the evapotranspiration, no? So, kung magkaroon man, remember, yung elements ng fire is the fire itself, the fuel, and heat. So, kung mababa ang temperature mo, less prone to the wildfire. And in this soil sponge landscape, ang dami niya ng kinikreate na pockets. You have these pockets of cool and regulated climate. Na minsan malamig talaga siya. So, pwedeng ma-arrest yung pag-spread ng wildfire. And doon din sa cases ng extreme cold, yung soil holds warmth in the soil. And so, you have this insulating buffer in times of extreme temperature. Next, yung water pollution issue. In short, pag konti ang tubig sa water table, mas concentrated ang pollutants, no? And so, kung meron ka ng constant supply ng water from the water table, from the aquifers and subterranean plume, nadadilute yung contaminants. And carbon issue. Increase of carbon in the living soil is tantamount to decrease of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because we are carbon beings, we are carbon organisms, no? Ang mga katawan ng organisms ay carbon. Kahit buhay, the living, the dead, and the very dead organisms. Our bodies are made up of carbon. Very dead, ito yung Ito yung fuel oil. Alright. Yung sa methane issue naman, if you have a biologically active and transpiring landscape, yung methane niya is changed in a form. This is very interesting. It's changed in a form that is not a greenhouse gas because of the water cycle that's happening above the landscape. And so, looking back at these issues, it becomes more and more clear that restoration and regeneration is very possible. To sum up, malapit na po ako matapos. To sum up, because this is the action part of it, no? And I really think we need to follow this and to put this in action, spread it far and wide and deep. How do we do that? How do we create soil sponges and living soils? And here are the soil restoration principles. Maximize photosynthesis. Don't use chemical inputs. Diba? Sa nature, when nature makes forest, nature never needed synthetic inputs. So don't use chemical inputs. They're not necessary. Second, provide shelter, moisture, and nutrition for soil life. And keep it covered all year round with living plants and mulch materials. Keep it covered at all times. Eliminate or minimize, but much better if eliminate physical, chemical, and biological stresses like unnecessary tillage. Eliminate especially biocides, the pesticide, insecticide, malicide, aldicides, and minimize or eliminate over or undergrazing. Magtanim ng as diverse plants as possible above ground to increase biological diversity, not only above ground but also below ground. Ang bawat tanim is an entourage in itself. Meron siya ng mga partner na microorganisms, may mga partner din siya ng mga macroorganisms. From the smallest bacteria to the largest animal. So if you plant a diverse, a wide range of trees and plants above ground, you will also create automatic and biological diversity. And this is where also the integration of diversity of animals is important. We need them to move nutrients, microbes, seeds, and pollen, and regulate water flows. And also, get to know your land, no? Be intimate with it. Really know it. Really, really know it. Learn about its history. Talk to the old people in the area, how it was, what their experiences of it was. Because you need to know where you are. And you also need to know what your land wants to be, what it is becoming. Have a good look at it, what it is becoming, what grew well there before, and what's growing well there now, and what could grow well. You have to know it. Be intimate with it, just like with any being you could be intimate with. You need to learn where it has been hurt. You need to learn what needs to heal in it. And also who need to drive them there, both humans and otherwise. And you need to learn who do you need to provide food for. So you need to really get to be intimate with the land in order for you to have a fully alive landscape. And this is very important for me. And maybe for us, for everybody who is holding the soil, you know, and co-creating with it. This is very, very important. So these are the suggested soil restoration principles. And I really, really hope um, you would all put them into action. And as a closing, um, this is my personal invitation. My personal invitation to all of you. Already, I know you. Some of you are really, really good farmers. You might be farming by the hectares of land, and my invitation really is to set up living soil. If you did not yet set up, start with one. You know, just start with 1 square centimeter. Sorry, square meter of living soil, and it's very easy to do. Tulad ng ginawa namin last May 3, with the group of the 4-H young people. I hope Kriel is still here. Yeah, you're one of my superstars, Kriel. Grabe. Kaya niyang itaas kaya niyang magbuhat ng isang sako ng, what a girl. Wow. So, ang ginawa namin doon is, kung ano yung available na organic matter, we put at the base yung coconut husk, and then yung trunk ng banana, and then yung garden soil, and yung compost, and yung mulch, and then we planted. Because that's what they have. That's what they have, no? Or if you have kitchen scraps, use that as well. Kung meron ka ng manure, use that as well as a layer, because that's what I do. And then I put on top of it, it's like a lasagna, no? Put on top of it garden soil, and then compost, and then I'd put really, really soaked cardboard and dried leaves on top of it. Soak it well before putting the cardboard, and then plant. If we are able to do this, we are creating our own living soil, our own soil sponge. And I tell you, there is so much life in it when you do that. It's like all these microorganisms. It's like throwing a party, and all the microorganisms and all the soil organisms already would announce to the entire soil community, hey, there's this big party going on. Parang may naglanding doon na rainforest. And suddenly it's dark, it's wet, it's cold, and ang dami ng pagkain, and they all go there partying. And while they do that, your plants are also partying. And while these organisms party, all these other things and the healing that I've just mentioned in my entire presentation is happening. Just 1 square meter of soil. You can just try doing it. And you see, you can always add to it. And if we do it 1 square meter at a time, we will be able to heal it. We'll be able to heal the landscape. Maraming salamat po. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being with me. Nadagang salamat. Salamat kaayo.
Welcome.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you rin.
And ito pong how do you call this? Ito pong presentation ko is very wordy. Sinadya ko talaga siya so I can share it to anybody. who would be interested to have a copy of it and to make your own presentation as well. You can use this. Andyan lang siya kay Claire. You can add your own experiences to it and
Thank you
spread
so
the good
much.
news. You can spread the good news. Mas maraming tao ang makakaalam nito and makakagawa nito, mas makakatulong tayo. And together we can really help co-create. Sabi nga ni Eisenstein, that more beautiful world our heart knows is possible. So, thank you so very, very much. I think nag-over na ako sa aking presentation. And I don't know if there are still questions or you can just na lang, email me or message me for questions.
Din,
Opo.
ako ay nagpapasalamat sa iyo. Tama-tama lang yung presentation mo dahil gumagawa ako ng soil ngayon dito sa rooftop. Oo, meron akong mga siguro 200 square meter ang ginagawa ko ngayon. So, makakatulong sa akin yan. Hihingin ko na lang kay Claire na i-email na lang sa akin yan.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much, Din.
Most welcome po.
Dean, can I ask a question?
Sure. Sino po ito?
June po, June Sare.
Opo.
You were mentioning kanina about yung dun sa mga sloping lands, no? Ang takbo ng tubig pababa, but the trees are and the plants are trying to hold it. Kung gagamitin, paano makakaroon ng mas magandang percolation yung soil? Kabisado niyo po ba yung salt, yung
Yes.
cultural land technologies? Would you recommend that for regeneration and utilization of the land for agricultural use?
Yes. Opo. There are ways for us to deal with doon sa sloping na mga areas. Depende din kasi siya doon sa pagkaka-slope. Doon sa extremely sloping areas like what we have in some parts of our farm, talagang slide talaga. Halos mag-vertical siya, 80 degrees. So, medyo hirap talaga siya. But doon sa medyo gentle yung slope, ang dami nating pwedeng magawa para makatulong tayong ma-absorb yung water. More water sa landscape. We can even create mga canals and how do you call that, swales. Yung contour farming, definitely very, very helpful.
Okay. So for mga steep lands, hindi pwede yung contour.
Hindi na po tayo. Oo, hindi na po tayo makaka-contour sa very, very steep lands.
I mean, for 80 degrees, kahit pa paano, parang stairways para matamnan ng mga herbs or spices or even yung puno para to retain more kumbaga water dun sa surface kaysa yung fully erode.
Okay. Doon po sa halos kasi 10 degrees na lang na siya, vertical vertical na siya. Oo. So doon ang ginagawa namin is talagang tanim as much trees as you can. Na po pwedeng mabuhay doon at tanim. But really talagang yung pwersa ng tubig, yung daloy ng tubig is halos diretso siya.
Okay, sige. Thank you.
But I would want to invite you to have a good look at it. Like the first principle in permaculture is observe and interact, no? Tingnan mo din siya, paano mag-behave ang nature in really very steep slope doon sa pristine na areas. And then doon natin pwedeng i-pattern yung pwede nating i-design doon sa ating farms. because I also don't know. I don't have the answers. I also speak from my experience and the experiences of people that I interact with. And so, baka meron din po kayo ng mai-offer. May matutunan kayo ng bago and mai-offer sa grupo.
Okay, thank you po. Thank you. Well, actually, the reason I asked kasi in-implement namin yung food forest doon sa mga eroded land dito sa Doña Remedios Trinidad. And we are planting cacao, but at the same time, we are planting mga herbs and spices. And we have not so steep, not 80 degrees naman, para siguro mga 60 degrees. So we are putting mga contour mga terraces. Tapos, and we asked yung mga coffee grounds, mga used coffee grounds, pinatutuyo namin, tapos kinakalat namin sa dahil fully eroded na yung lugar. And somehow I saw na as observed, gumaganda naman din yung lupa as time goes by. So yun lang.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. Keep doing it. If you could add more diverse plants and kung ano pa yung paidadagdag mo using these principles na pwedeng makatulong, I would encourage you to go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Opo, salamat din. All right. Siguro Claire, we could do a group picture with the remaining people who are here. Kung wala na ng question.
Yeah. May we request yung mga pwede lang maka-open ng cameras sa mga hindi mabagal ang internet connection.
Again, sa light lang ako, but yeah, I really hope it does.
Wait natin. Yung iba nag-ano pa eh. Yeah. Sige. 1. Wait, tayan natin si Ma'am Ann. Lumabas ako. Ay, mawala-wala. Sige. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Yes, thank you so much.
Salamat din. Ganda ng presentation. Very important. Detallado.
Opo. Welcome.
Salamat sa inyo. Salamat sa invitation.
And to everybody, all the best to all the things that we do. And God bless you. Okay po.
Bye-bye.
We will post the presentation na lang po sa ESSA website. Abang-abang na lang po. Sige. Salamat. Bye-bye. Thank you, Ma'am Dean.
Welcome ga.
Okay, good night na sa inyong lahat. God bless.
God bless po.
God bless. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.